melancholic and architectural structure has had some effect in your music, in your experience. So the thought I was having is when you so I've experienced your music over the period of years, and I know that you express yourself in various ways through in the jazz idiom as well as working with players in the extended techniques and so forth. So do you know or do you remember when a time came when you felt that you wanted to extend past the ethos of the elements that you grew up with, like in the, from the days of listening to Dexter and studying saxophone, and say, what do you know what that was that helped you to leap, so to speak, into the more outer realms, or to want to explore those areas?
I remember a few different points. I came up definitely in the conservatory tradition, now the jazz conservatory tradition, so since 1970 on, I would say. I definitely in the competition-based, very conservative world of straight-ahead jazz. And I think I brought some values from that. A lot of it had to dispense with, but it just made sense to me that even if I didn't like the more esoteric music, that was the logical endpoint, or not endpoint, that was a logical destination. Even at 16 or 17, it's like I would tell you I didn't like Coltrane past 1960, but I knew that at some point the tradition of the bebop movement, what I valued about it was not what people talk about, the tradition. I valued that these were young musicians and they were doing something different, and they were doing something rhythmically more interesting and harmonically more interesting, and it required more technical virtuosity, and all of that really were important to me. And values of like, this is not dance music, this is art music, and if you don't like that, then well, you know what they would say.
Yeah.
And I always felt like that was the, where I was moving, and I assumed everybody else would get that, and I just, the longer I stayed in that world of playing straight ahead, the more friction I felt with some people, and the less connected I got to it, and I practice straight ahead. I like the way I practice chromatic scales. I practice Monk tunes the way I practice arpeggios. I practice, to the best of my ability. But I think that maybe for other people, but for me, I cannot. I can't really say anything. It's more a mathematical problem to be revealed and manipulated right now for me, versus when I was 16, where it really meant something to me.
So at some point, though, you met artists of similar thought process or similar element or aesthetics, and do you know generally what that was, or who your earliest folks in here in the local Bay Area that you played with that kind
Marco and Eddie. That was the watershed moment. I ran screaming from LA.
Yeah.
I was working in LA. I was going to San Diego State. I was working in LA. I was dying, and I left LA. I knew that I needed to go, and I figured, well, I should go to school because that's what I've been doing. Went to Sonoma State. They had auditions that were open, where everybody would audition at the same time, and it would go one player to the other to the other. And here was this little guy with his shaved head and all his New York at the time affectation, of probably living 12 to a loft, got whole scene, and he scared me, and he scared me so bad, and I hadn't been scared by Menza, by Pete Chrisley. There wasn't like Benny Wallace. They didn't scare me. I could get up and play with them. There was no whether they had more could play more. That you obviously can make a case, but like the bar was suddenly raised, just boom, it just went right like that. And
well, what were you scared of? What was it that it was? I mean, what was that? What you said you were scared of? I'm just curious as to what triggered that fear.
Well, I think that there's something we don't talk about. This is competition. There's the competition of being on stage and being able to cut through and being able to do that. And then there's the competition of measuring yourself versus your peers and finding that you have value and merit. And when I measured myself against Marco that day, even at 23, when I had all these skills, it seemed pretty insignificant. And I wanted to,
But you talked with him, I would assume you communicated
we
with
saw
him.
each other later in Cotati, and he knew, I get a sense that he knew he had really frightened me. And I went on to study with him and play with him. And I think like a lot of people, that he would show me stuff where, and kind of lessons, but I got more from him after a while from playing with him.
Right.
Just sitting there and playing, he'd talk about his thought process, or you would hear what he wouldn't talk about. You'd ask him questions in places he wouldn't go.
Right.
And it was that. So I got introduced to this world.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I was still playing straight ahead. But I was kind of more and more just leaving that world.
So he was kind of the gateway to meeting a lot of
To meeting Damon Smith, who
right.
we would go out and practice on the streets, and then we would go do his orchestras, and we would be so strong and relaxed. It was really, and Damon always devoured the new music. He always had a huge discography even back then. And so he was very generous with his with recordings and
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. So we're going to be getting a great chance. A lot of folks are going to get a great chance to hear you play at the summit on July 22nd, and you'll be playing with Timothy Lohr and Randy Hunt. So what would you tell folks that they could experience if they come to the show and hear you play with the trio?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I played a lot of straight ahead. I've known Randy since I was 19. Right. I played a lot of straight ahead gigs with Randy, a ton. And I've played a lot of straight ahead gigs with Randy and Tim together. And I really can't tell them what to play. And we can play 10 sets, and they're 10 completely different sets.
Okay.
And what I will say is that this group, more than other groups, and I feel like I've some projects that really do amazing music, but this group, it kind of spans the widest range of music of any of my other projects.
So expect the unexpected, basically.
Well, okay, you know what, as I was talking about with Tim online, I think that because of the nature of what I do in my physical preparation, I would say probably 30% of what you hear will have some basis in energy music.
Right. Okay.
After that, I don't know.
Right. Excellent. Well, that's really fun because that's what we like to offer folks. Something that they can come in and be truly an experience that they can walk away and say, I experienced something different and unique.
Yeah.
And new. So I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
And it's good to talk to you, and we look forward to hearing you on July 22nd at the Community Viewing Center.
Yeah, look forward to being there.
All right. Thank you.
Peace.